Kelly Shaw, Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization. We're up at Lone Peak in Utah investigating a Bigfoot sighting that has a video that came with it. Tanner Hargis emails us shortly after he captures what he thinks may be a Bigfoot on video. This is what he writes. I think I have captured a video of Sasquatch around 10:30 a.m. this morning up on Wasatch Range near Lone Peak. It was high up to where I don't think any man would be hiking up there right now. I do think it's something to be checked into. Rocky Mountain Sasquatch responds, Hi, thanks for letting us know about your sighting. Send us a link or a clip of your video if you can. What road were you on when you filmed this? Tanner Hargis responds, I was in my backyard with a spotting scope. The zoom on the spotting scope is 20 by 60 by 80. After Kelly and Derek take a look at the footage, RMSO responds, You must live near Highland Drive, and it was walking above East Bench Trail up by Lone Peak, just trying to figure out how high it was above you. Tanner responds, We live west of I-15 near Bangerter Highway. I would think between 7 and 9,000 feet according to an X-Hunt map. He was about 8,600 feet elevation. RMSO responds, Interesting, did you get any indication how tall it was? Tanner responds, By the looks of it, it looked to be like 8 feet tall. It was walking fast going uphill, and the arms were about to his knee. I do believe this is the fastest we've been to a Bigfoot sighting location. This is only 35 miles from our home, so we head right up there. And so we're there within 3 hours of the sighting, and we start scanning the peak, the ridge lines, and then the nearby peaks and ridge lines with our high power cameras. We're zooming in, looking to see if we can find this possible Bigfoot that he may have filmed. He was at least 7 miles away with a powerful scope. My best cameras have about a 2.5 mile zoom, but we get right up there. We're down at the base of the mountain scanning the peaks. I'm going to show you his footage, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the conversation we have after we get back home from investigating his sighting. We got his footage, and we also cropped some of his footage that he sent to us. After the follow-up conversation, I am going to give you guys a Bigfoot sighting report that's always intrigued me, that's north of his sighting. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to put all the photos that we took. After our investigation later on that evening, we respond. We went out there and looked around, glassing ridges, peaks, and clearings with cameras. How much footage did you film up there? Tanner responds, I only had those 2 videos. They weren't that clear, but I tried to get a good video. My experience using powerful cameras zoomed in gets really shaky the more you zoom in. You can't hardly move at all, and this guy is zooming in 6 to 7 miles with a very powerful scope and using a camera through the lens. So very challenging. He observed the creature through the scope, but that's all the footage he got, and I would like to thank him for the footage he got. I'm sure that he's unsure of what he got. We're unsure of what he got. But because of the Provo Bigfoot sighting just a couple of months ago south of here, and then this Wasatch Front area is just a Bigfoot sighting hotspot, we're coming up here 3 hours after his sighting and his little video that he got, we're up here much closer than he is, and we're scanning the ridges, peaks, and clearings of Lone Peak and peaks and ridges nearby. We're going to put the photos at the end of this video that we took, because photos have much better clarity than video. So look through those photos, and if you guys see anything interesting, please let us know. Derek and Kelly examine the footage and comment back and forth. Derek comments, "Top of a saddle, somewhere would agree, not the place you would think that someone would be walking this time of year." Kelly's response, "This guy Tanner was sitting down in the valley west of I-15. He was zooming from a long distance to get this footage, guessing 7 miles at least. His scope has a better zoom than my most powerful camera that has a 2.5 mile zoom capability." I then tell Derek, "Jen and I are going up to glass Lone Peak, its ridges and clearings with the most powerful cameras. We will also glass peaks and ridges surrounding the Lone Peak area. Wish us luck." As we're glassing with our cameras, Lone Peak and the ridges and other peaks surrounding it, looking for this Bigfoot that was just spotted 3 hours ago, I'm going to give you a Bigfoot sighting report that has just intrigued me for about the last 15 years that's north of this. This is near Little Cottonwood Canyon. The Bigfoot sighting report that I want to give you is 3 experiences that a family had that built a cabin in Big Cottonwood Canyon. Here goes the Bigfoot sighting report. I will leave a link in the description of this video to a blog with Tanner's written report, and I will also leave a link to the following report that we're going to give from Cottonwood Canyon, the Big Cottonwood Canyon, north of Tanner's Bigfoot sighting. This whole ordeal began back in August of 1964. I was at a family cabin with a friend of mine. I was born and raised in Salt Lake, and when we were in junior high, middle school, one or the other parents would drive us up to the cabin in Cottonwood Canyon, Salt Lake County. One or the other of the parents would drive us up to the cabin and drop us off for the weekend or just a few days, and then the other parents would come and pick us up. I had spent a great deal of time in Big Cottonwood Canyon because of my grandparents' cabin. I went deer hunting regularly with my father when I was younger, and then later by myself. So I thought I knew everything there was to know about that canyon. We got dropped off, got settled in, and being about 14 or so, there was no drugs, no alcohol, no mind-altering nothing at all. Just good, straight kids enjoying a little camping trip, making us feeling like we were grown up. It's hard to describe the feeling of utter isolation. In the summertime, midweek, it was not uncommon to not see a single car or truck for 4 days on that dirt road. No telephones of any kind. We used to go hiking, get up in the morning and decide which direction to go, up or down the road. We decided that we'd go up the road, and it was so hot and so dusty that you couldn't help but see there was a great number of deer tracks heading down the canyon. I mentioned to my friend, and he said there was always been a lot of deer, but I was like, yeah, but it's summertime and it's hot, and they normally go up higher in elevation where they got the creeks, and they shouldn't be going down this low. As we walked along, I looked down at a set of cat tracks, and I said, my God, that's why we were heading down the canyon. We have a cougar on the trail. They got the deer moving down the canyon. They're afraid of it. We got up the next morning. We went down the road toward the Big Cottonwood Highway. We used to leave fishing hooks on a line in a creek down the road. We got so absorbed in playing in the creek, we didn't even realize it was getting dark. The bats were coming out. We decided to head back toward the canyon. By this time it was really dark, It was hard to see. You couldn't even see your hand in front of you. As we go up toward the road that's towards the cabin, you could be level with the ground on one side, or you could be staring at the dirt wall on the other side. That's where they cut through the hillside to put in the road. As we walked along, we kept feeling like there was something not quite right. And I said, Dean, stop. Just stop. Don't ask me to just stop. I heard a crunch. Whatever made that sound would have been following alongside of us. And then when we walked, it walked. When we stopped, it stopped. About one step behind us. I said, Dean, we are being hunted. It's that cougar, and we didn't know exactly what to do. We kept on walking, and sure enough, you could hear it crunch, crunch, crunch. Some very large animal. And I said, Dean, I think this is a bear. It's just too noisy to be a cougar. I think it's after us. We stopped and picked up a good-sized rock, and decided if it came out of the darkness towards us, we would throw a rock in its direction and take off. The two of us are stopped and staring into the darkness. Laterally, you could see nothing but black. And then we hear a low guttural growl. It wasn't feline, it wasn't bear, and it wasn't human. It was just an unearthly. And we looked at each other, and we took off running as fast as we could go. The road toward the cabin and the outhouse leveled off. To get to the cabin, to the outhouse, you would walk straight out and another 50 yards to the right, and then there was the outhouse. It was right alongside the gully. We forfeited the long way on the road and dropped into the gully, ran past the outhouse, ran into the cabin, slammed the door, and locked it. All of a sudden, you could hear the outhouse door slam shut. Oh, we were terrified. We flipped on the light outside the cabin to the outhouse and couldn't see a thing. No movement, no noise, and it dawned on me. A cougar doesn't hide in an outhouse. A bear didn't hide in the outhouse. I had no idea what it was. I had heard of Bigfoot and Yeti, and I knew about these, but that's in places like Nepal, and I had no idea there was anything other than an occasional bear or a few cougars where we were. So there we were, glued to the window, staring out the cabin at the outhouse. After a while we got tired of watching, stopped looking out the window, and then you could hear the outhouse door. It flung open, and whatever it was crashed through the undergrowth. We took out to the kitchen and grabbed some knives and went upstairs. We spent the night staring at the staircase, wondering what was going to stick its head up and scare us to death. The next morning when we got up, it was a beautiful day. We thought, let's try and salvage this trip and go another direction and see what's up that way. We took off toward Cardiff Mine. It was a gold mine back in the old days. It got its name from Cardiff Wells, a place where the ore was shipped. We usually took the bridge across the creek that went toward Cardiff Mine, and this time I decided that had never been left on the trail, and we ought to give that a shot. See what was interesting up there. As we stumbled along, it was pretty thick undergrowth. It was hard to move through. We came to a clearing with very ancient old pine. There were 6 to 8 of these pines. In the middle of them was a pine bed, a circle of pine trees. And this was the one place that the sun made it to the ground in the thick canopy. There was pine boughs that were laid, and we could tell that they were pulled off from branches on these pine trees 12 to 15 feet off the ground. There was a 10-foot circle of this pine bough nest. I couldn't help but notice an immense amount of reddish-brown hair everywhere. It was stuck to the bark, to the pine trees. It was all over the place, in the pine boughs, and there was like it was back scratching against the trees. There was no bear that could be this big or tall that could reach that. What was interesting is we both stared at the nest. I got a sick feeling. I mean, sick to my stomach. Like I've never seen anything like this, and I'm really, really afraid. I'm not sure what to be afraid of, but I know I gotta get out of there. So we took off. This would have been about 2 to 3 miles from the cabin, and I think it was the next day the parents came up and picked us up. The ancient pine trees reminded me of the Lord of the Ring trees. Again, not having any idea that these so-called Bigfoot or Sasquatch or abominable snowmen were real, we went over to my grandparents' house, and I don't know how the discussion got to the point, but I asked her if she had ever seen or heard anything like a Yeti or a Bigfoot. She wrung her hands and said yes. The very first winter she had in 1950, they built the cabin, and it was not much of a cabin. It was a cinder block with 2 floors with a bed upstairs. It was in June when the snow melted, just enough so that you could drive up to the cabin. They got out of the car and stared at the cabin and couldn't believe what they were seeing. The door and the door jamb was laying flat on the floor in the cabin. There was muddy footprints upstairs and downstairs. Other than that, there was no damage. The door jamb and the door had been pounded in, and then the muddy footprints all over the cabin. The follow-up investigation by BFRO investigator Caroline Curtis. We received the following voicemail from the witness. My name is blank, and I live in Anaheim, California. My phone number is blank blank blank. I am a Parkinson's disease victim, and I cannot hardly type out a message on a keypad. Can I give my detailed sighting to someone over the phone? This all took place outside of Salt Lake City in about 1964 in Big Cottonwood Canyon. My email address is blank. It would help me immensely if I could get this off my chest. Thank you. Goodbye. Caroline Curtis says I returned the call, and during the phone-telephone conversation, we were able to work together to submit this report. He talked and I typed. I did not add anything. I must say that reading this type report does not have the same effect as listening to the gentleman on the story. Unfortunately, he has lost contact with his friend Dean. This was the only time anything strange had happened to him while he was at the cabin. The cabin, if it's still there, is no longer in the family. The location is in the Wasatch National Forest near the town of Alta, and not too far from Brighton Ski Resort. I asked for input from the fellow investigator, Todd Strong from Utah, and he had to add this. The area is extremely rugged and wild, and even though it's close to Salt Lake City and a lot of people drive up there from the canyon, it's usually off limits to hunting. It has lots and lots of big game, deer, elk, and moose. I hope you guys enjoyed the possible Bigfoot video from today and the Bigfoot sighting report that we just gave you. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching. Make sure you watch to the end. We're going to put all the photographs that we took today. We got up here 3 hours after the Bigfoot sighting and showed you the video that he took with that powerful deer hunting scope. And now we're looking around at a much closer area with powerful cameras, and we're going to take a bunch of pictures. The pictures have much better clarity than videos, so make sure you look through the pictures and see if you can see anything unusual. Keep on watching. We'll keep on squatching.